we are responsible to run the county's housing programs, mostly related to grant programs. We have 5 divisions that make up our office. The existing housing division is responsible for all of our subsidy programs, which includes Section 8. We also have a whole slew of specialty type voucher programs that HUD has focused on in the last couple of years that includes focus on veterans, homeless, foster youth, and elderly, non-elderly persons with disabilities. The grants management division of our office administers and monitors our federal grant programs. So those would include programs like the Community Development Block Grant, Housing Trust Fund, the Home Investment Partnership, and the new Affordable Housing Production Fund program, which was appropriated by the county. There is a community development division. This division focuses on working with developers and connecting them with resources, incentive programs, and other options for developing affordable housing. The division also oversees our assets, some of the county housing assets. I believe there's about 24 sites that we monitor. So we do annual inspections and make sure that maintenance work is done on an annual basis.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Okay. The Community Engagement Division is a new division to this office. And through this particular division, we do all of our homeless coordination. So the new fund, the Homelessness and Housing Fund, comes through this division. But the division also focuses on developing programs to provide the community with access to services. And we also do the landlord-tenant mediation program. There's a residential repair program, a mortgage program, and a city, the Financial Empowerment Center is also managed through this division. And then the last division is really key for us, of course, is the Administrative Accounting and Human Resources division of our office. There is a study that's out right now. It's a 5-year study, the Hawaii Housing Planning Study. And through this study, the data shows that in order for us to meet the housing needs for this community, we need to have 10,796 units by the year 2025. I can tell you that we are very far from this, and I'm sure you can all feel the impact of that. But what this chart does show is that here, this number right here is actually, showing 13,000 units, but that includes area median incomes up to 180%. If we were looking at area median incomes up to 140%, which is the guide that we tend to use, we're looking at 10,000 units, affordable units. And I'll get into AMI next. So in order to address the need for these many units, we've developed a strategic roadmap for housing development. And I'll go over the 5 strategies that we've been incorporating. So the first strategy is to do a comprehensive review and update of Chapter 11. And for those of you who don't know or not familiar, Chapter 11 is the affordable housing policy for the county. And it is what we call an inclusionary zoning policy. Chapter 11 recognizes with its inclusionary zoning policy, it's a market-based strategy, really. And what it does is for any market units that come onto the market that triggers a need for rezoning, it does trigger Chapter 11. And what happens is the developers are then required to set aside up to 20% of that development for affordable housing. the concern that we've been seeing is that the market rate housing has not been productive. And so with an inclusionary zoning policy that's based on the market, that is not producing units, you're not going to see affordable housing markets either, right? 20% of zero equals zero. So we really have been working hard to do this review. We brought on a consultant last year. Really, I'm thinking, in fact, we just had a meeting with them this morning, and timeline is looking like within the next couple of months, maybe by the end of May, we should have a draft report out on the new recommendations for this affordable housing policy. Strategy number 2 is a comprehensive review of the subdivision and zoning codes. And this has really been worked on by the planning department. And we've been collaborating with them on this as well. Strategy 3, the establishment of an affordable housing fund. You know, when we first came on board a couple of years ago, the county really had not made any kind of funding investments in affordable housing development or homelessness. And we now actually have both. So our Affordable Housing Production Fund, we've spent the last year getting administrative rules in place, which has now been completed. And we should be going out for an RFP next month. We are looking at, for fiscal year 22-23, $9 million. And anticipating somewhere between $5 and $9 million for 23-24. So the ordinance does read that the county will commit a minimum of $5 million a year, and any balance as determined by the finance director. So it's been really great to see $9 million coming down the pipeline for us to use for this fund. Strategy number 4, the use of state and county-owned lands for affordable housing development. We've actually identified quite a few county parcels, as well as state-owned parcels that we've submitted to the state for approval. I will be going over some of those with you later in the slides. Strategy number 5, the development of an expedited planning and permitting process for affordable housing projects. So I know that this group is very familiar with EPIC and some of the challenges that the county has had. And maybe, hopefully, you're hearing some of the headway that Public Works is starting to make. But for me, you know, our focus is affordable housing development. So we've worked out an expedited process that includes work from both OHCD and Public Works to move affordable housing projects through the process a little bit quicker. So we actually have a couple of pilot projects that we're testing right now, and I'm very hopeful that that's going to work out really well. So since we've implemented this the strategic roadmap, this is what the pipeline looks like. When we first came on board, there was about 1,000 affordable housing units in the pipeline. And these are units or projects that could be in any phase of development. Today, the pipeline has 5,700 units in various stages of development. And we're very happy to hear that or to see that happening, rolling out. So the chart here kind of shows that effort and that progress. And we're hoping that as we're moving along in the years to 2024, we're going to keep moving this line in an upward fashion. So I keep referring to, and I'm going to keep referring to AMIs as I start to go through the details of some of the projects that are in the pipeline. So I thought it would be important for you to kind of have an understanding of what this is. AMI stands for Area Median Income. And basically, this is a statistic that is used to determine qualifications for a variety of housing programs by HUD. So it identifies income by family, and it is a way for us to check the eligibility of households when they're applying for subsidy programs or even some of our other housing projects. So I'm going to share this other chart with you. Okay, this looks like a bunch of numbers, right? But what is important that I want to show you here is for a one-person household, when we talk about 60% area median income, we're talking about an individual that's earning $40,000 a year. When we start to talk about 80%, we're looking at an income of $53,000 a year. When we start talking about 140% AMI, that individual is making about $93,000 a year. So what this chart does is it gives programs the ability to classify households, one person, two persons, three persons, and you can see the family incomes that go across here. So Ashley, I'm going to make this PowerPoint available to you guys, and you can use this as a resource, because you kind of need to keep going back to this chart as different discussions are happening.
Okay, there is a couple of questions in the chat I want to get to before we keep going.
Okay.
So the first one was, what's the residential repair program and mortgage program?
Okay, so the residential repair program is a federally funded program. It is meant to focus on households also with an income criteria. I think you have to be at 80% AMI to qualify for these funds. It is a low interest loan program, and I believe right now it's up to $25,000. A family can apply through our office, and you can use the funds to repair homes. A lot of the time we have water heater replacements. You know, sometimes we've seen people address lead-based paint issues for older homes, a whole variety of residential repairs. And the intention is to help preserve our existing inventory and help families to do that. The other one was the Housing Assistance Fund.
Mortgage program was the other one.
Okay, so during the COVID period, the County of Hawaii received through the state, well, actually, I'll back up. There were allocations that were direct from the Treasury, federal Treasury, and allocations that came through the state for both programs. But we had an emergency rent program and the Hawaii Housing Assistance Fund, which is the mortgage program. So these programs were set up, funded by the federal government to assist households who were having problems either paying their rent or paying their mortgage. These programs are still running, and we're actually looking at doing round 2 in the new fiscal year on both programs. So if you have individuals who are interested, you can go to our website. There's going to be some program information there, or you could definitely call into our office to get more detailed information and access to the programs. The Community Engagement Division is the division that's running these programs. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. Another question that came in was about the number of units in the pipeline. This person was wondering how many have been completed since 2020.
So very little. I think last year there was a little over 100 units that came into the marketplace. And this year we were anticipating about 200 something units coming online. And this is the thing. Housing development projects takes years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, depending on a number of different challenges, right, that a development could have. If projects were not already in the pipeline by the time this administration came on board. It is very, very difficult to have housing being produced first year, second year, because it takes so much longer to do a housing development. So what we tried to do was take an inventory of what types of projects or developers had come to the county for assistance and what was in the pipeline, so that we could have a database for the number of units that we were working on. So some projects have come online, and I believe some of my slides will show you individual projects that have actually completed and been produced. But the rest of them are projects. If it's in the pipeline, it means that it hasn't completed yet. I believe that for 2023, there was a couple of, I want to say almost 300 units that were going to start construction. So it's a process. But let me run through the slides, because some of those project slides will give detailed information.
Awesome, thank you. And I know that there is a number of other questions in the chat, so we'll try and get to them at the end. And if not, maybe we can have Susan just follow back up with some of the, the big topics that we keep seeing, but want to make sure that we allow her time to go through the rest of the presentation. So thanks everyone for submitting those questions in the chat.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start with some of the projects that are in the pipeline. So these are private developments. These are not necessarily county projects. And the total number of units completed in 2022 is 112. So Kaia'ulu Waikoloa for 60 units. And these are units that are serving incomes from 30 to 60% AMI, family rentals, to 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units in the Waikoloa Village area. So this project completed at the end of last year. Papaloa Elderly is a county project, but HICDC, or Hawaii Island Community Development Corporation, did this project for the county. It originally is a very old project, probably about 35 years. There were originally 10 senior apartments there, and there are now 20 apartments, 60% AMI, senior rentals, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And the villages of Laiopua Phase 1 is in Kailua Kona. This project actually has several phases. I think they're starting to work on Phase 3 already, but they completed Phase 1 last year for 32 single family homes, 30 to 60% AMI. So I think that answers one of the questions that came up, So here's a list of projects that are there's a couple of them that we are hoping are going to complete this year, but most of them are projects that we're that are going to commence in 2023. So I'll kind of go through. Oh, I was wrong about the number. It's 697 units. Okay, so the first one is Sacred Heart Housing. This one's located in Pahoa Town, 12 units for homeless kupuna. This is one of the projects that we are anticipating are going to finish this year. This is a new project that is going to start this year, Ho'omalu at Waikoloa, 229 apartments from 30 to 100% AMI. And you can kind of see the unit mixes here. This one's going to be developed by Stanford Carr. Kaloko Heights, this is a really good example of projects that can get stuck in the pipeline. This project, gosh, I remember us working on this thing for the last maybe 15 or 16 years. So it's finally going to come online this year, or start this year. 99 apartments. This is right up Hinalani Street in Kona, 30 to 60% AMI family rentals. Waikoloa Family Affordable. This particular project is just makai of the core Waikoloa Village area. 110 apartments, rental units, And we do anticipate this one to be completing very shortly. I believe that there were wait lists already being publicized online for this project. Kaiulu o Kapiolani. This is a Hilo project located right across from the Hilo police station. 64 apartments. Haleolo Ola o Moho'uli. 90 apartments. This one's going to be interesting because it's a pocket unit design for family and seniors. This is the first time we've seen a kind of a combination project like this, so we're really excited to see how this one will roll out. Halinakoa o Hanakahi. This one started construction already. This is the project that's located right across from Waikea High School in Hilo. 91 apartments, 30 to 80% AMI, and this one will focus or preference US veterans and their spouses. This one too, this is a project that's been in the pipeline for about 15 years as well. Okay, affordable housing projects located on state-owned parcels. So these are parcels that we have submitted a request to the state Department of Land and Natural Resources, and it will require an executive order being issued by the governor in order for Hawaii County to start work on any of these projects. This one in particular, we already have an executive order on. So the county has been managing this site for many, many, many years. But if any of you are familiar with the old Memorial Hospital, much of it is currently unusable. We do have a portion of this building that is being leased out to Hope Services, and they are doing emergency shelter work, and I believe upstairs they're doing some permanent units. We do also have a lease with the Big Island Substance Abuse Council, but they are not able to utilize the building. So what the county did when we came on board was secured some funding and engaged with a consultant to do an environmental assessment, which is going to be required because I was able to secure this year $13 million of federal earmark funds through Senator Schatz and Senator Hirono to start work on this project. So the dream here is this building sits on about 24 acres right above Hilo town. And so the dream is to have the building renovated so that services for homeless individuals can be delivered through the building, and to develop the remaining 20 acres behind the building up to the river for permanent supportive housing. So we're pretty excited about that one. Kukui Ola is a very similar type of project. This one is also focused on addressing homelessness. The first phase that we're working on right now, and this parcel is located right across the street, Kealakehe Parkway, from the West Hawaii Civic Center. First phase is to do mass grading for the entire project and install a road, which is what we're working on right now. And then put up 16 emergency shelters at the site. The second phase will be the development of 48 permanent housing units on the backside of the project here. This project as well, last year I was able to secure a federal earmark funds from Senator Schatz and Senator Hirono in the amount of $10 million for this particular project. So we finally have this one moving along. This project is in the Hilo area off of High Street and Aino'ola. This is about, I believe this is, yes, it's a 70-acre parcel. We do have an executive order from the governor on this one, so we have engaged with a consultant to help us come up with a conceptual plan. We're estimating about 250 units can be produced here. We plan to do a mix of single family sorry, not for sale, single family and multifamily affordable housing. I have to keep this straight. We can't sell state land, so. This is another parcel that we recently received executive order from the governor on. This parcel is off of High Street. If you're familiar with the area, it's across the street from the Muni Golf Course, behind the new fire station. There's about 30 acres there. So we're looking to do about 87 units on this parcel. And I'll remind the group, you know, the Office of Housing is not a developer. So our plan with all of these is to get entitlements in place, make sure that infrastructure is accessible to the parcel, and then work with the developer to help us secure funding for vertical construction and the build out of the project. So that's our state land inventory that we are trying to get in place. We also have a bunch of county-owned parcels that we're working on. And at full build out, we're looking at 938 units for the county parcels that we are currently looking at. So Kamakoa Nui is a parcel that is in the Waikoloa Village area. The county has been working on this for several administrations, actually. But coming on board, we were working with a master plan that was about 15 years old. So the first thing we did was secured a consultant to help us relook at the master plan, making sure that the housing units or the design of the units were in line with what the community needs are. So we are currently, we're going to be focusing this year on installing. Can you see my pointer? Can you see my little arrow? No?
Yeah. Cannot.
Cannot. Oh, okay. So this pink parcel right here is a parcel that we are negotiating with the state library, public library, and hoping to have a public library for Waikoloa built there. We are currently working on a lease with the state library office. The other parcels up to this middle line right here. So this gray line that you see on this parcel is interior roads. And what we hope to do this year is get this interior road installed. And again, making sure that we do have water and wastewater availability for these sites. By the time we're securing a developer to do this work, they're pretty much clear to pursue funding for vertical construction, and everything else should be in place for them. And we're really hoping that that minimizes, you know, some of the uncertainty that developers run into when they're doing these kinds of low-income housing projects. But this is a county-owned parcel. So we're not only going to focus on rentals, but we are going to be doing parcels for sale, single-family for sale units. The county has actually already, I think this was under Mayor Kanoi's administration, we did 91 single-family units here at the site. And so we plan to continue with plans for both, because I think there's a need for both. And if you notice, the income levels that we will be serving will go from 30% EMI up to 140% EMI. You know, I've been doing a couple of community meetings recently, one in the Waikoloa Village area and one in Waimea. And I'm hearing very loudly the need for workforce housing. And so, you know, I think in the past, the county has been really great about focusing on the 60% and below, right? And to be honest, the federal government's subsidies and funding tend to focus on that lower end. So when you look at our inventory, we have a lot of rental housing for 60% AMI and below. I really do see the need for us to start to blend and pay attention to our workforce. I think it's really important for this community, especially. So let me move on here. So Nahale Makoa. So this is a parcel that's actually located in Kamakoa Nui. And we RFP'd this parcel early on in the fall of 2022. No, I think it was earlier than that, actually. They are in the process right now of securing low-income housing tax credit funding. And so we're hoping that they're going to be in production, under construction this year. This particular parcel is located off of Wainuinui Avenue, kind of across from the Hilo Medical Center area. We are working currently with a consultant, kind of doing some planning and due diligence studies on this parcel. There are some water issues that we're going to have to navigate a little bit, so we're kind of looking into how we can do that. But we do estimate about 100 units potentially for this area. And I'll remind this group, if you see here, unit mix, single family workforce housing lots, we can do single family for sale units with county land. We cannot do that with state land. So there's an opportunity for us to focus on that here. Out in Ocala, we have a parcel there that we're doing the same. We're looking at 30 homes, potentially out in that area, single family as well. Taylor, Ashley, are there any questions regarding the projects before I move on?
The most recent one that came in said, what is the projected time frame for the Ainakeo project?
The Ainako?
Sorry. Yep.
The Ainako project. It's still going to be, it's a little bit of ways away yet. Like I said, we've engaged with a consultant, really want to do our due diligence because there is some floodplain issues that we need to work around. And then working with the consultant to come up with design plans so we can have a vision of what we're seeing before we start to engage with a developer. This parcel has a lot of trees, a lot of vegetation. So there are some other issues that we're going to have to navigate through with this particular parcel. I don't have a timeline that I feel comfortable committing to because we've got some work to do still. But I hope that this is not the first time I'm engaging with this group, and I would love to keep you all updated on our progress. So I'll make sure to do that.
Thank you. And then the next one that just came in was a question about deed restrictions on the county land homes that are sold.
We haven't worked through all of that, but obviously there will be some. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about affordability periods and things like that tied to these parcels. With Kamakoa Nui and the project that we did out there, the single family for sale, it was a 10-year period that we have on those parcels. And it's so interesting because a lot of discussions that we've been having really straddle both sides. Some people say that, when we're doing housing projects like this, we need to increase the number of years that they remain affordable. But when you're doing projects like this, in talking to some of the developers, we also realize that, young families especially, they're making an investment like this and they're hoping to build equity, right, in projects like this. And if we're extending too long the affordability period, it really minimizes a family's ability to do that. So it's some of the discussion that we're having to navigate. And I guess what I'm saying is we haven't decided yet how we're going to move forward on that, but there will be deed restrictions, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So one of the areas that I was asked to cover is on fair housing. And this is Fair Housing Month. They are commemorating their 55th anniversary with the passage of the Fair Housing Act. You know, my office actually houses this program, and I have a fair housing coordinator, although she was out on leave for a little bit. And so I wasn't able to secure her for this particular presentation. But so let me just read through this because I think it's important that the Office of Housing is taking part in a virtual seminar this month. And my next slide is going to show you some of the virtual workshops that we're conducting. And I want to make sure you all get that information so you can attend those. But there will be representatives from our partners like Legal Aid Society, Civil Rights Commission, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And Representative Troy Hashimoto will also be joining us for some of those sessions. You know, and with fair housing, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir right now, but you know, for those of us who have licenses and you know, these what do you call these training classes that we have to take every year, right? Fair housing is always one of those classes that are available for us to take. And it's interesting because every time I take a fair housing class, I always learn something that I didn't know before, or the light goes on some issue, right? So I think it's important for us to stay engaged with these training opportunities for fair housing. But here's a list of the workshops that are coming up. Tomorrow there's going to be another one, the 20th and the 27th. That QR code actually works and it'll take you to the website. I hope you'll join my staff and our partners in those workshops. Okay, so I was also asked to cover a little bit about the existing housing division and a housing choice voucher programs. So I'm going to give you a little bit more than what I gave you earlier. So sharing the goals of our existing housing division and what is in our annual plan. And it is to expand the supply of assisted housing, to improve the quality and efficiency of assisted housing, increase housing choices, promote self-sufficiency, seek partnerships that will further the goal of affordable housing opportunities, ensure equal opportunity and affirmatively furthering fair housing, and improving the housing delivery system. This chart gives you an idea of the number of vouchers that we manage, the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And this number here also includes our veteran programs, our foster youth programs as well, and project-based vouchers for 2,100 vouchers. And then we have allocated 110 vouchers for homeless, specifically on homelessness. And then the mainstream, which is non-elderly disabled population, there's 87 vouchers. It kind of gives you an idea of the number of vouchers that we manage and our progress. So this particular slide starts to get us into how we are developing programs to incentivize new landlords to join our program. You know, we receive the funding from HUD to provide these rental subsidies to our community. But I cannot do it successfully if we don't have an inventory of rental housing available. And so it's really important for us to connect with landlords. And so we developed this incentive program last year, actually, to hopefully get landlords to the table to give the program a try. And so you can be eligible for up to $3,000 in a bonus payment when you're renting to any of the emergency housing voucher participants, veterans, non-elderly, disabled, or foster youth. So this actually applies to all of the kind of specialty programs we have, not the regular housing choice voucher program. Signing a lease with a tenant for a year will make you eligible for this $3,000 bonus. And of course, you can contact my office staff for more information on this. I was sharing with Taylor and Ashley before we got on, about this particular Act 310, which I'm sure you are all very familiar with. It passed last year, and I think it takes effect on May 1st, 2023. And so what this particular act does is it prohibits the discrimination against prospective or current tenants based on their participation in our voucher programs. And I am very sensitive to the fact that a lot of you may have, when this bill was going through the legislature last year, are not in support of this. So I just want you to know that I'm very sensitive to that. I also want you to know that there were a lot of housing offices like ours who were engaging with the legislators and actually supporting this bill. Like I was mentioning earlier, the success of our voucher programs, the rent subsidy programs, is really based on our ability to partner with landlords. So you can see how hugely important that is. The one thing that I do really want to point out to all of you is that while this act passed, and it does prohibit the discrimination against Section 8 programs, right? The landlord ultimately has the final say as to who they get into a lease with. For several years, I managed properties with the Big Island Housing Foundation, so I'm very familiar with this. And especially projects that are 100% subsidized, right? Or any of you who have units that you're renting, and this is affecting. The landlord has the ability to interview the participants, and you're going to interview them based on their income, and you're going to interview them because there's an income eligibility requirement, right? Especially in the Section 8 programs. You cannot be making more than 80% AMI. But you also look at history. You look at a tenant's rental history. And in the end, the landlords make the final decision as to whether or not you're going to enter into a lease. So I just wanted to remind this group that while this law did pass, landlords do have the final say as to who they're bringing into their units. Oops. I believe that there is an act in the legislature this year. I have to tell you really honestly, myself and other housing offices have not been really involved in this particular bill. And I checked this morning, and it doesn't look like that bill is moving forward. I think that what it might have been doing was addressing the 4 or more rental properties. I don't know if there was anything else, but I don't believe the bill that's going through the legislature this year is moving forward. Any discussion or questions about this? Okay. And this just further kind of outlines the examples of the prohibited discrimination that's outlined in the bill. I think you're all pretty familiar with it. And that's it. I just have some information here on how to contact my office. Please pay attention to our website because we have recently updated our website. It's packed full of information. So take a minute to go there and check out all of our programs. Do you have any questions that I can answer?
Is there a place, Susan, online perhaps, where anyone could search for locations and information on each development and the stages therein?
I think, I don't believe that we've updated the website with these particular projects. What you will find online is a listing of completed affordable housing projects for multifamily and for seniors, but not these. So I don't mind sharing this PowerPoint with you, and you could distribute them. It is the most updated slides that I have on these particular projects. Would that be helpful?
That would be great, and I'll get that distributed to everyone here today.
Okay.
One of the other questions that came in is, how is the demand for affordable housing determined, and what is the relationship with projections for new residents?
Projections. So how is it determined? So we base our we base that information on the studies that have been conducted. So the Hawaii Housing Planning Study, which covers the years 2020 to 2024, is really the database that we've been working off of. My staff is currently working with the Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation, the state agency, on the next 5-year Hawaii Housing Planning Study. So they're currently engaging with consultants now to develop that database for the next 5 years. Other than that, I really rely on this outreach that I do with folks like you, or the community meetings that I have, really taking to heart the comments and the questions that I receive to help provide some guidance as far as the direction that we go with our programs.
Thank you. A few more questions that I saw come through chat. You mentioned earlier that Office of Housing is not a developer, but that you secure the entitlements in place. And then Office of Housing works with the developers to build vertical, quote unquote. Does vertical include infrastructure?
So it's my hope that what we bring to the table is not just the parcel, but that we can make sure that there is access to water and wastewater to that site. Now, there are some parcels that I'm working on that do not have access, for example, to county sewer. And so that's going to trigger a need for either, for the larger parcels, a wastewater treatment plant, or needing to do some kind of septic system. And so, but it's my hope that we can at least make sure to the best of our ability that there's infrastructure accessible. So by the time we're engaging with a developer, they may need to secure funds to do the internal infrastructure on site. We're going to bring those lines to the site. And then vertical construction, the constructing of the actual units, they would need to secure funding to do that. Does that answer the question?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
And one last question, and I did record everyone's questions, so we'll do a follow-up with Susan. Susan, I'll send you the questions via email.
Okay.
Is it possible, or has there been discussions to provide a down payment assistance program, which is similar to Oahu and Maui, where the county provides monies to qualified local families to purchase homes outside of housing projects?
Yes, we have been talking about that, and several of the funding streams that we bring in from HUD provide that ability to develop these kinds of programs. Another avenue that we've been talking about is our financial empowerment centers. also have the ability to work with the community on developing down payment programs for them. We also, through our Section 8 programs, have a family self-sufficiency program and a home ownership program. And so these are specific to those who are eligible and on our Section 8 programs. Last year, we actually served about 72 families who came off of our Section 8 programs, entered into these family self-sufficiency programs, which helps the family to develop a nest egg for down payment and actually move them into home ownership. So those have been very, very successful programs for us. But the answer is yes. We have been having discussions about it, and the HUD programs that we administer do give us the ability to do that.
Taylor, do you have anything to add? Any questions?
I do. There was quite a few questions at the end here about affordable housing credits. And so I think that I'm going to compile those and hopefully we can get a written response from you along with the other questions, because I think some of them probably require a little bit more explanation. And so just want to give you the opportunity to really divulge that stuff offline and to us later, just to be cognizant of time.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll be more than happy to do that. I think it's a really important area. And I'll just share with this group that in our housing strategy of doing a comprehensive review of Chapter 11, which is where the housing credit system sits, we've been having some very robust conversations about the success of it, the challenges that we've seen with it, that I'm sure you all have heard of. And whether or not the system is actually producing affordable housing with the investment of time and effort that we've put into that system. So that our consultant and my staff have really been digging in and looking into the viability of continuing such a program. So I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's all we have. So we just want to thank you for your time and thanks for being with us. We absolutely would love to have you back as things progress in the future. And we just thank you so much for all of you to be here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.